Hey there, and welcome back to Left of Old North. This is episode number 7. I'm your host, CJ Robinson.
And I'm your host, Adrian.
And today we got kind of an interesting little episode. First off, we're going to start with our initial reactions from outside the state executive committee meeting for the North Carolina Democratic Party from this past weekend. And then we've got an interview with Megan Wagner, who is the manager for Dante Pittman, whose victory broke the Republican supermajority in the North Carolina General Assembly. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We kind of get into what that experience was like, what it's like managing an SEC race. That is State Executive Committee, not Southeastern Conference for y'all. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into our initial thoughts after our adventures into the land of bureaucracy.
All right, roll the clip.
Ooh.
All right, so yeah, you're right. It's a little echoey right there.
Punched up.
Yeah, this is how my mom broke her ankle. CJ almost busted his ass sliding on some ice out here in Wilson, North Carolina.
It's fun.
So yeah, what are your initial impressions?
I mean,
okay, real quick. So we ended on time.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking miracle.
It's not the most common thing.
We got through the entire agenda too.
Yeah.
Which was impressive. Even though I feel like they did have to kind of rush some people through the microphone to get that done a couple times. I think there was just a general reaction of like, okay, let's get through this damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I think what it is a lot of people, they are sacrificing their week or part of their weekend. They are sacrificing their time, and they are here to take care of business. So
yeah. Although I would definitely argue that there are many times where somebody gets up to speak and like has a problem with something, but if they read any part of the plan of organization or the bylaws or anything like that, they would see that all of this stuff is part of the process and they should have been prepared to come here and argue all this stuff.
And there's definitely some homework that should be done before all this starts.
Yeah, you can't show up to these and then be like, well, I don't agree with this thing or this little thing, and then expect everybody to be on your side with that.
Yeah.
Especially when it means going through some things like line by line.
Yep.
Because people famously love getting down into the nitty-gritty when there's 600 people present.
And, a whole day's worth of work ahead.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the big thing, though. What everyone really kind of came out here for, the main event, so to say. And, that is the chair elections and vice chair elections. The leadership elections for the state party, really.
Yeah, so that included, really the only actual elections that really took place was the chair, the vice chair,
secretary.
the secretary, and that's it, really.
So, essentially the second and third vice chair, there were no challengers announced in advance or from the floor. And so we were able to, vote by acclamation?
Yeah, vote by acclamation.
Yeah, to retain Dr. Kimberly Hardy and Elijah King as second and third vice chair, respectively. And then for first vice chair, we'll do first vice chair.
Build up to it.
Yeah, that works. There was Jonah Garson, who is the incumbent. And then he had challenges from Jason Butler and Aaron Johnson.
Yeah.
And it was, I would say, pretty decidedly went to Jonah.
Yeah, he had, I think, 299 votes. There were 452 votes cast, almost 500, something like that. And they needed 250 votes to win. Yeah. And he got way beyond that.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
But it wasn't a bad showing for Aaron.
No, it wasn't.
I think he got like 180-something, 190-something votes.
That sounds about right.
So, and there was a bit of salaciousness, I think maybe we can probably talk about.
Yeah.
Now that it's kind of all over. There was definitely an attempt to try and slander First Vice Chair Jonah Garson prior to this vote taking place.
And let me just say, from a personal perspective, so as we talked about on the pod before, Adrian and I have both been campaign managers. We were both campaign managers this past cycle. And I gotta say, personally, Jonah helped out a lot on the campaign that I was managing. He showed up, he helped knock doors, came to fundraisers, et cetera, et cetera. Like, he showed up for in case y'all haven't figured this out, we were actually recording outside of Sally B. Howard School where this took place.
Yeah, this is literally moments after we walked out the door.
Yes, we were right beside the road.
Sweating profusely.
It gets hot in there.
Pushing old women out of the way.
Well, maybe you, but I'm not trying to get implemented that. No, so anyway, that's what I was saying. Jonah helped out a lot on the campaign I was managing, and I could not be more proud to have cast my vote for him as an SEC member. But there were all these, like Adrian said, salacious, attacks and baseless attacks on Jonah, on his character. All this stuff is absolutely inexcusable. It's immature. And the way I look at it is, if someone has something to say about him or about someone in the party in general, if they have a problem with the way they're doing things, then that person needs to actually go about this appropriately, or run for chair themselves, not hide behind an anonymous email, not leak it to a reporter with a Substack and whatnot.
Yeah, these were all rumors or previously alleged things. I don't know how deep this goes exactly. This is a lot of stuff that has been kind of in closed circles. I won't go into detail just so I don't, reopen the wound. I'm sure if you know somebody or if you dig hard enough, you can find it. But these kinds of rumors, I mean, all they really serve to do is to try and
divide. Yeah,
to push somebody out of a running for something that has no bearing on their ability to do the job.
And in all honesty, it's just bullshit. That's all it is.
But Aaron accepted his loss, I thought, really graciously.
Oh, yeah, incredibly graciously.
And called for everybody to, whoever was perpetuating these verbal assault, or rather written assaults, to knock it the fuck off.
Yeah.
In not so many words.
But. As they should. Obviously we don't know what the temperature is going to be 2 years from now, but hopefully this isn't, we don't see a repeat of this in 2 years.
I don't think we will. I mean, if we, it's all going to depend on midterms.
Yeah, agreed.
If for some reason we can't raise enough money, or rather, excuse me, I should say, for some reason if the Democratic Party cannot raise enough money, if they lose seats in droves, if they make promises and then don't live up to them, these are the kinds of things that get people overturned,
right,
and ousted.
But in all honesty, just kind of based off what we've seen so far over the past 2 years and what I've heard and what I know about the character of these people in charge, I don't think that's anything to worry about, really.
I don't think so either. But that kind of brings us to our big last race, which was for the chair position, which is currently held by 27-year-old Anderson Breeze Clayton, who we have already, we gave our support publicly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she won in a landslide.
Yes.
It was not close at all.
Yeah, so the results, she won it very handedly. She had 405 votes to 71 votes, so that is 83.51% to 14.64%.
Yeah, and this is another instance where I will say that her opponent, this is one of those instances where I will say that her opponent, Marlando Pridgen, I think it was just a few different things in his speech and in the way he kind of professed his candidacy online that I think really sort of hindered his ability to gain a lot of votes. One of the things being that, like, focusing really hard on the need for a systemic, or what did he call it? A very a systematic, a strategic plan. A laid out, point by point strategic plan, and on its face, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
But, and this is just my interpretation. This is my opinion. But during his speech, he said that we need to be unpredictable. And that caught me by surprise, because I thought the whole selling point was that we're going to be very strategic and we're going to lay it all out there. I mean, it's not exactly like, I hate to use them as an example, but it's not exactly like Republicans have not been by the book. They've had a literal playbook for years now.
Yeah.
And they've pretty much followed it to a T.
And look what's happened. They've done a great job.
Yeah.
Well,
great being the operative word for themselves, yes.
Great as far as...
They've been successful.
They've won.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, they have been successful. And I think the problem is that you're kind of mixing up this feeling, this need to be both strategic but also unpredictable.
Yeah.
And using that as a selling point to say, what exactly?
Right. I think
that you need to have a strategic plan, and that it'll be vested in you. Just do whatever I say, but let's not be so predictable that everybody knows what's going on at any point in time.
Right. And I think that's one thing that struck me about Pridgeon's campaign was he kept on saying, you need a strategic plan, and then kept on accusing the party of not having a plan. We've seen their plan. We've seen it work out. And during an election where Democrats did really poorly across the entire country, North Carolina stood out as, a little blue beacon of hope to some extent,
Yeah.
And so we've seen their plan. We know the current chair and, the vice chairs and everyone have a plan. But he, when asked about it online and whatnot, did not.
When you specifically
I specifically asked him online in a little forum if he had a plan, and he, said that he would not talk about it publicly on, that platform that we were on, and to come to an event that he was at, which, in all honesty, all transparency, I did not go to. But still, if you are asking to have someone vote for you, if you're asking someone to, support you, you need to tell them your plan. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Or at least have a vision you can sell them on, and not just, attacks on the chair and that's it.
Right. It does come to a point where you're kind of like, okay, you say you have a plan, so what is the plan? Right. Well, I can't tell you my plan. You got to hire me, and then I'll tell you the plan. It's literally that bit from The Office.
Yeah.
Like, we do have a need for a strategic plan. Yes, nobody's arguing that.
Right.
But if your plan is just vest all control in me, I will make sure it gets done. That's not a plan.
Yeah.
That's just rule. That's just authoritarianism.
It's concepts of a plan.
That's concepts of a plan. We've seen that happen before. Just hire a billionaire, I guess, to do it all for you, and then you're good.
But, yeah.
But those are our initial thoughts. I think it's very interesting that everybody has a very wide array of what they feel like are the main points that we should be following going forward, the main attack points.
Yeah.
Everybody has plenty of ideas about that.
They do. And, I mean, they're entitled. They're perfectly entitled to them. They really are.
Any good ones you've heard tonight?
I mean...
that you're like, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, as far as plans go, year-round organizing, I think, still is something that the party is pursuing and needs to continue to pursue, because, yes, 2025 is like the year of municipal elections and whatnot, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, there is a tendency to think that organizing just needs to be done right up to the lead up to an election.
Yeah, and that's not the case. The way I've always personally viewed it is, a lot of campaigns are kind of like little upstart businesses and whatnot. They come into town, they set up shop, they do all this stuff, and then I said upstart, it's startup businesses.
Yeah.
But they come into town, they set up, and then they do their job, they leave, and that's it. They don't leave anything behind. They don't leave any type of platform, scaffolding, whatever you want to call it, for future campaigns, future businesses to build off of. And so you have to just kind of start over. But what I like about what the party is doing and what they're investing in, what they want to continue doing, is a year-round organizing. That way there's not an opportunity for that startup business to collapse. So say there's a chance for us to continue building off of the momentum we started back in November, really all of 2024, and carry that through 2025, through the municipals and all that stuff, and into 2026.
Absolutely.
And I will say one thing that's really...
And then we can roll off the back of that and go into 2028.
Yeah.
And and 2027, of course. Every year's an election year, folks.
Yeah.
But 2028 will be the next big presidential election year.
It will.
And that's where the lead up, that's where all the planning really comes into play.
And I mean, it's February 2025 right now, we get municipals in November, but you know what? We're already gonna start hearing about midterms here in the next couple months, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
People announcing, people trying to get stuff ready to go. So we'll see.
Campaigns for all that are really going to start ramping up in June, because that's when I believe that's when people are able to file.
I think so. That sounds right.
So when that comes around, we're going to be on the lookout for people that inspire us or that are trying to run again, and maybe previously it didn't work out. I've got a few county commissioners that I'm keeping my eyes on.
I know I've got someone for state house I would love to see run.
Yeah.
Who previously ran for state senate. So.
But we'll keep y'all focused and hopefully you keep tuned in. These are our initial thoughts. Stay on the left of Old North, folks.
So those were our initial thoughts, and I don't know about you, but I still feel pretty much the same way that I did right after that night. So
yeah, no, same. I mean, we were recording this on Tuesday night, so just a few nights, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah,
it is Tuesday.
So a few nights after the meeting, and I also feel pretty much the same. I'm excited to see where the party goes from here. So, and we were just talking a few minutes ago about Jonah Garson's victory as first vice chair, and well, we got Megan Wagner's interview up next, and she just so happened to be his campaign manager for the SEC vice chair.
Yeah, so we're going to get to hear a little bit from her about running campaigns, about breaking the supermajority, about how we can reach young people in North Carolina, both just as Democrats, but also to politically activate them, and to see how we can actually start winning a little bit in the state instead of just trying to stop the bleeding. Breaking the supermajority is no small feat, and I think we really owe it to her and also to Dante Pittman for having done that. So we hope you'll stay and listen for this interview with Megan Wagner. Thanks for staying on the left of Old North with us. Today we're joined by someone who knows how to win elections in North Carolina, Megan Wagner, a campaign manager with a perfect 3-0 record on her belt. She's played a key role in electing progressive leaders like Theodore Nollert to Chapel Hill Town Council, Dante Pittman to the NC House in District 24, and most recently helped secure Jonah Garson's re-election as the North Carolina Democratic Party's first vice chair. Megan has been in the trenches of North Carolina politics for a time, shaping campaigns, building grassroots movements, and proving that smart strategy and relentless organizing can deliver real victories. So we're excited to have her on to get her take on what it takes to win this state, the challenges of running progressive campaigns, and maybe give us some pointers on how we can actually win elections next time. Megan, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So a little bit of background about the three of us. We all worked for the North Carolina House Caucus, the Democratic House Caucus, to try and get some House candidates elected. And spoilers, only one of us succeeded.
Very competitive, so happy to be the one.
And I called you that night that we were sitting there pressing F5 on our laptops until the keys almost broke to congratulate you because Dante Pittman, another a fellow young Democrat, he's 27 now?
28.
28, okay. Well,
Not that I haven't memorized or anything still.
No, I'm sure you don't. Yeah, you probably still have every part of that just seared into your brain, right?
You have no idea.
Well, I hope you can give us an idea. So I just want to hear like your take on, I mean, now that it's been a few months and considering that we still have some races actually going on. I mean, we've talked about the Allison Riggs race here a few times on the podcast. And how does it feel to be able to sit back and rest on your laurels there for a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been really good to just, number one, rest after the campaign and like take time to collect myself and actually sit down and think about everything that we did. Because I think especially with the campaigns that we run, we don't have huge staffs. We don't have a bunch of people helping us do all the things. Like there is not a single thing that was not in my job description, not a single task too small that we weren't doing. And so there's not a lot of time to sit there as you're going and think about something we did last week or like a month ago or these really good things that we're doing. It's just trying to survive kind of to get to the end and do the job. And now with what we're seeing with so much dangerous stuff coming out of the Trump administration and some of the bad ideas that Republicans already have in the state legislature, just knowing that we have kind of that one level of protection there through Governor Stein having his veto and knowing that I was able to play a big part in that is really valuable. And it helps with right now with the downtime that I have to know that like that work was still important. And also with just, again, everything nationally, knowing that like, okay, there's still this bright spot that we can hold on to and trying not to despair too much about the things that are out of our control.
Yeah. And like you didn't get to rest on your laurels for too long because pretty much immediately you started working for Jonah Garson, again, NCDP's first vice chair, recently reelected. Now, I have not seen what the inside of a campaign like that looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe just a little peek behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that a campaign like that, it's in a way similar to a larger campaign, but also in a way very different because these aren't voters that you've never met before. They're not voters who have no idea what's going on and you're trying to bring them to the table. These are people who they know. They're members of the state executive committee. They're very involved. They sometimes know better than we do what's going on. And so it's really just saying, did they want Jonah to continue being one of their leaders? What did they think about the past election as people who were just as much, if not more, on the ground than we were? And so it was really just one-on-one conversations with as many people as we could have, making sure they were getting outreach, folks we couldn't reach by phone, making sure they were getting mail or email, just to really reach out to folks, make sure that they felt heard and supported by their party.
Was that Josie?
No, that was my cat.
Okay.
Josie should be asleep. But,
should be.
Yeah. No, so... yeah, no, it was, I gotta say, it was kind of interesting because, you know, I guess in full disclosure, all three of us were actually at the SEC meeting this past weekend whenever Jonah got reelected. Megan, of course, because, you know, manager. And I was there because I'm an SEC member myself. And Adrian, you were proxy?
Yeah, right? I was proxying for somebody else that was functioning in a different capacity for the Democratic Party. So they don't feel like it's good to cross those beams, you know, both being a voting member and also working directly with the leadership there. So I can understand that. But yeah, we were all there in different capacities. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah. It was interesting just kind of seeing how things are wildly different, but also incredibly similar. Going from, you know, a state house race to, you know, just this group of, what do we have, like 600 SEC members or something like that?
It was about 600.
Yeah.
That voter universe definitely shrinks a lot. So, speaking of, did you ever get into things like, you know, persuasion universes or anything like that? I mean, you already kind of talked about earlier, you know, these aren't like complete strangers or anything like that, but still there's, you know, relationships that have to be built, maintained, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we had specific persuasion universes, but again, these are people that we'd been working alongside for the past 2 years. We knew some of the folks that might need a little massaging to possibly get them to a yes and want to vote yes. And there's some folks we know they should be pretty solid. There's some folks we know they're probably going to vote against us. And so we had a pretty good idea of where some of those people stood, and just really tried to, again, be really open and have those conversations about what they want to see from the party.
Yeah. And, you know, considering there were only like 3 real races, it was decently close between Jonah and his opponent, well, the runner-up opponent, Aaron Johnson. I just want to know, like, because, like, how did you feel right before the count, you know, came up and then they announced who had actually won the vote?
Yeah, I mean, we felt pretty good going into it. We had our whip count, which we anticipated to be about 53% of the body. I think the actual count was higher than that, percentage-wise, because there was a smaller number of members there. But we felt really confident going into it because we had a lot of those conversations. We had done the work to code everyone to know these are folks who are 1, 2s, 3, 4, 5s, and to just kind of have an idea of where most people stood going in to it. So we felt pretty good. I was, of course, nervous because you get the whole GOTV phase, which is normally like a month of a campaign in like 4 days. But we felt pretty good going into it and trusted the work that we had done, and clearly it paid off. So
Yeah.
Do you think it was harder trying to interface with people who were almost exclusively on Zoom and like trying to make sure that you had their votes? I know it sounds like a weird question, but like I feel like it could be easier to persuade people in person, especially if it's kind of last minute.
Yeah, I will say most of the folks, like we had connected with them long before the meeting. The meeting was kind of just, it's like when people are walking into the voting site, you still try to get them, like when you're poll grading, kind of the same thing. We were talking to everyone that was there in the building. But on Zoom, we couldn't really be in that space at the same time. It was pretty much impossible. But we had talked to everyone really ahead of time to make sure we got that information. So we weren't having to rely on trying to interface via the Zoom.
Gotcha. CJ, did you have a question? I'm sorry. I felt like I stepped on you there for a second.
Oh, no, you're good. I had something, but I completely lost it, so we'll go back and do it maybe. We'll see.
Well, so moving a little bit beyond that scope, also recently were the DNC elections, and we saw some pretty big upsets and victories, one being David Hogg becoming the vice chair, which I honestly, like, full disclosure, I was for his election as vice chair. I didn't think he was going to get it. That seemed like pretty far-fetched to me, but it was interesting to see. But I don't know how y'all swung. I was a Ben Wickler guy, and where did you fall on that spectrum there, Megan?
I have to say I was pretty ambivalent towards the whole process. It was clear that there was going to be new leadership coming in, and I think it was a good idea for there to be some fresh faces. Ultimately, I ended up supporting Wickler. I think I gave him like $5 just to feel included in the electoral process. And a lot of that was just because, number one, I trusted the judgment of Anderson and some of the other state party folks. And also, he helped put together an event with NCDP. I think it was in July, maybe, between Miss Dems and NCDP, and Dante was a panelist on there. And so I had actually like seen him a little bit on a Zoom before and knew a bit about who he was like, folks who are also in swing states and willing to kind of put the focus and share that with other candidates. I was like, that's an impactful leadership style. I was like, I like that. But again, I really was pretty ambivalent towards the whole thing. I think they were both be great options. And it seems like Ken is doing a great job. I like what we see with some of like what Democrats did today going out. So I think it's a good choice. I think we're in a good spot.
Sure. Do you think that the those what we did today email chains are effective? Like, do you think that is something? I mean, we've all sent emails trying to get people to be informed, and also please donate money. So if you are subscribed to any of those mailing lists, you have been getting a lot of them, I'm sure. Do you see anything that they could probably be doing? Like, we're all on the ground here. I have my own thoughts. I'm sure CJ does too. But again, we're talking to a winner here. So do you see anything that you would personally improve upon, or that maybe it's going great and you're like, nope, keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily an improvement, I would say, because I don't know if they're already doing this, but I think sometimes it's a great message showing what Dems did today. but it depends on the messenger who's actually getting them to folks. Like, is the only time people are hearing about this is from the DNC sending it to them, especially with some of the folks who are more skeptical or moderate? Because if so, they're not going to listen. But if we're able to get those messages on what we did into the local stakeholders that folks do trust, who are the church leaders, who are the people in barbershops and at schools that can share this information and say, this is what's happening. This is how this item, bullet number 3 on the list, actually relates to you in your daily life. And just trying to make sure that that's getting to the right messengers. It's a good message, but again, it has to be the right people sharing that message for folks to actually trust it.
I think that's very insightful. That's something the Dems are struggling with right now, is trying to penetrate the social sphere the way that Republicans, MAGA, people like Steve Bannon specifically have been able to do, with unfortunately pretty lethal effect. So, but I want to. Sorry. Go ahead, CJ.
Oh, I was just agreeing. Jesus. So I do very much agree that that the Dems, that is, definitely need to work on getting that message out. And I do like this whole what Dems did today sort of thing, because I think one thing that you're seeing a lot in both just, your everyday Dems, but also your activist Dems and your donor Dems and whatnot, is this sense of, we need y'all to take action, we need y'all to step up, and we need to see you actually doing something. I think there's this perception of the Dems just being completely spineless, so to say, and we can either unable or unwilling to fight back against the Trump administration and Republicans in general. I mean, it didn't really help a couple of weeks ago when Hakeem Jeffries was like, they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the White House. Like, what are we going to do? I'm like, dude, you've had how many years of Republican obstructionism? Take a lesson from their book. And so I think something like the whole what Dems did today thing is at least a good step. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it's a good first step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to that effect, do you think, I guess from a campaign manager perspective, I think we can all speak from that perspective, but when it comes to, hang on, let me gather my thought again. Sorry. I'm going to have to edit out some ums and stuff anyway. So sorry. So with that, knowing that this is kind of the game plan that they're going forward with, and hopefully we'll see some effect with that. I could also see that because of Trump's already sliding popularity, both in polls and pretty obviously online and in town hall meetings. I don't know if you guys have been seeing, I'm sure you have, but just these town hall meetings, these meetings with representatives across the states, where people are just absolutely livid with what they're doing in Congress and just kind of letting the Trump administration roll over everything with what they want to do. And we haven't completely abated that with, the election of Dante Pittman, for one, which helped break the supermajority. Thank you very, very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
But also, where do we go from here, especially in this state? Because another poll that is very relevant is that we were the lowest turnout in the age ranges of 22 to 25, and that's abysmal. And we're not quite that age, but we're in that age bracket. Well, we're young-ish. Megan, you're still in your 20s. It's fine.
Not to call you old or anything, but I am in that age bracket. So I'm one of them.
Oh, that's right. You're 24, right?
23.
23? Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations to your youth.
And I'm just going to go and, get in my grave and die. That's all. Go get my AARP card and my senior discount and all that shit.
Well, so as a 23 or as somebody who does fit that bracket, how do you feel that where can we better reach that area of the age demographic? Because whatever is happening right now does not seem to be working.
Yeah. I wish I had the answer to that, frankly. Because if I knew, I would be doing it. But I feel like it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about like needing the right messengers. I think a lot of young people, so I was a sophomore in high school when Trump was elected, and we very quickly kind of saw like this like backsliding of political norms of what we expected from our political system. And like I was still able to remember when things were ever so slightly normal and not just completely corrupted. And I think there's a big generation of folks who they've never seen a government that actually functioned and worked for them or attempted to work for them. And so there's a big mistrust just in general that the system is even something that we should look at. Electoral politics don't matter to a lot of young people. It's more focused on like issue-based advocacy or social movements, which I think is still a great place for folks to put their energy, but that does somehow need to complement what's going on electorally. And I think just getting back to who are the right messengers, people don't trust us. They're like, there's all these things happening. There's all this inaction. Why aren't you doing anything? Why didn't you codify Roe v. Wade? And people don't necessarily understand like why those things didn't happen. And there's just so much mistrust. And so it's getting the right messengers in there. We've always talked about needing like the Joe Rogan of the left. Someone that can really authentically get in there without it being necessarily political. And I also, again, I don't have all the answers. I'm very biased with the friends that I have. We're all extremely informed and very active. And I'm grateful for that. However, it is really hard to pierce through that to get to other young folks. I think just having the right messengers, having the right message, putting a little bit of hope in there. I'm an extreme cynic. I'm sure other people my generation are just in the political system that we're in. There's no right answer, but I think just trying to move towards a little bit of trust building will go a long way with people my age.
Yeah, I think that's for somebody who says that they don't have all the answers, but no,
Easier said than done.
Yeah, of course. And like if I was asking you for like a one size fits all kind of thing, like clearly, you know, we've said on this podcast multiple times, politics is fluid. It's you're never going to be able to attack things the same way twice. It might work twice, but that doesn't mean you should do it that way. And with 18 to 25 year olds, with 25 to 40 year olds, it's a different beast every few election cycles. Mm-hmm. So I think that you're right in that, like, absolutely, there has to be a gear shift. Like, figure out, okay, you don't know how to talk to these people? Figure out how to talk to them, because whatever you're doing right now is not working. And the messenger is important, absolutely, which is why we were very disappointed when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was kind of snubbed for her position of the Oversight Committee. But
I'm so mad about that.
Oh, I was furious. I mean, you had Pelosi from her hospital bed in, Germany, I think?
Yeah.
Pull on the strings to take it away from perhaps the most visible, most popular, really, I'd argue, Democrat in Congress, just to install, was he like late 70s, early 80s?
74.
74-year-old guy with literal throat cancer. Like, you had the opportunity to build a bridge, and you just detonated it.
Yeah.
I think especially because AOC, I think her and Jeff Jackson are both like I've never heard anyone put the two of them together before, but they're both really good at like communicating with people outwardly and like directly. And I think it's hard to replicate for politicians if it's not authentic. But those are people who can really connect with normal people. The number of people that I've talked to and they're like, oh yeah, Jeff Jackson, I like his videos. I'm like, how do you know who he is? Like, you're normal. You're not one of us on this Zoom right now.
Because he is the normal guy.
Get that communication out there. And something I've thought about just talking about with, you're talking about the age range of 18 to 25 and how it changes so much. I think it's also, I saw a graphic recently about how different the generation is for those of us who kind of, I think it was like started college pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and those of us who graduated high school pre and post-COVID, because I graduated high school the year before COVID started. And so I kind of got a little bit of a year of like normal in the real world, and a lot of people didn't. And it kind of changed who people see as like the resistance what's the alternative to this thing we don't like, which is kind of being stuck at home. And it was a theory that the person who made this graphic had, that that's why we're seeing some of the rightward shift with young folks. I have no idea if it's true, but I could gather that would be a part of it.
Yeah, I would think that, I mean, I'm sure that is one of many facets of the redirect of, like, young people always tend to vote Democratic or liberal or leftist. And it's like to a pretty broad extent that is still true, but there was enough of a shift that people are sweating, you know.
Yeah. and the TikTok ban, like, I was personally very distraught over it for the 12 hours that I did not get to use TikTok. And when you're between jobs, you spend a lot of time on TikTok. But then when it comes back and there's the very obvious propaganda thing on it, I'm like, oh, maybe this is why they tried to ban it. Saying thank you, President Trump. I'm like, shit, that's going to work on people.
Yeah.
They're not going to see this as the very obvious propaganda play that it is to help him politically. And so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Whether or not it's doable by 2028, who knows? But again, it's just that trust. They see, oh, there's this thing he did. That's good. They don't trust us to do the same. Why didn't we protect TikTok? It's just all of those things like that, where the Republicans are able to get the credit and just sideline Dems over it.
I think, especially congressional Dems, are really good at shooting themselves in the foot in that respect. Because the whole TikTok ban thing, it was originally an idea under Trump during his first term. And then we managed to take it and turn it into our own thing and then catch all the shit for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then hand Republicans a victory. What kind of backward ass shit is that? We snatched defeat from the jaws of victory there.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Jeff Jackson get more blame for it in his TikTok comments than Republicans.
Yeah.
If you would look for a while, they're like, what app are you recording this on, Jeff? That was the sentiment of people there. They just don't get it.
I wish that you could have joined us for episode 5. And yes, this is a plug for you to go and listen to episode 5 right now. It's all about the TikTok ban. We recorded it when that happened. Unfortunately, we weren't able to release it until much later. But you should go listen to that because we actually go into a lot more depth about it and echoing some of the sentiments that Megan is also talking about here. Just okay, yeah, Jeff Jackson did vote for it. He's one guy.
Yep.
He just happens to have 2 million followers on TikTok. There's no correlation to any of this based on just, oh, he has more power because he has more followers. Sure, he has more reach, but his vote counts just as much as the lone congressman from Wyoming. So, but rolling off of the back of that, we talk a lot about younger folks, especially the need for younger folks to get involved in politics, especially if there's something that bothers them. And while we know now that you are a successful political campaigner and strategist, what was Megan doing when you were 16 years old? Why did you, how did you go from there? High school kid that probably didn't know too much about politics. Maybe you did, but I know most don't, so I'm assuming, to now. What got you into this, and why did you want to work as a campaign manager? Why deal with all that stress?
Who hurt you?
Yeah.
What happened?
What is wrong with you?
No, I ask myself that all the time. But so I was 11 when Obama was reelected. Not to make y'all feel old again, but I wasn't really paying attention to that presidential election. Again, I was in the 6th grade. But when 2016 happened, that was the first election that I had actually followed, and I had paid attention to some of the people who were running and watched the debates, and I watched the DNC convention and paid attention, and then Trump won, and I was like, what? He's insane. The things that he was saying, I was like, I don't understand how people could vote for him. Again, naive little 15-year-old in 2016. And I really wanted to get involved in politics somehow, get involved in it. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. If you can't tell, I love to argue. And I was like, how do I get involved in all of this? And then when the 2018 midterms happened, I still didn't know how to get involved. I was in a really red county where I grew up. There was not any kind of youth organizing for people who were not super Republican around. But I followed that, and It's funny, I actually had followed Beto O'Rourke's campaign when he ran for Senate in 2018. And then I remember it was spring of my senior year in high school. He was running for president, and he was going to be on UNC's campus for a rally. And I tried to go to the rally. I couldn't get in because I wasn't a student, but I went to another one he had in Greensboro that day. It was my first time ever meeting a political candidate. But I had remembered that UNC Young Dems had hosted that same thing. And so then when I got to college, I was like, I'll join. Why not? See if I like it. Within a month of being there, we were out canvassing in extremely rural Robeson County, where Dan McCready was running in the redo election for the 9th Congressional District, which was redone due to GOP ballot fraud. We're just out there having conversations with people. And in hindsight, the three girls that I was with and I probably should not have gone down like a dirt road through a cornfield to get to somebody's house at our first time ever canvassing, and then walked into this person's house when they invited us in to talk to them. It's like the exact opposite of everything I tell my canvassers to do. I'm like, never go into someone's house. Like, oh, I went in the first day, but we were just like talking to this older gentleman. He was completely immobile. He didn't know how he could get to vote. And we were just showing him, here's how you can get like a mail-in ballot. And just having those conversations, just like really meeting voters where they are. And I was like, this felt really important, what I did today. And I kind of kept that with me. And I stayed with UNC Young Dems for a long time, stayed with the org. And we did a lot of virtual organizing and phone banks in 2020 for council of state candidates. We did a little bit for Biden. And then in 2022, I was president of that org and just stayed doing all of the things, and I kind of remembered like the actual grassroots organizing, talking to voters. Everything that we have to do has to be to reach voters, and really, really hammered it on that. We ran a staging location near campus to try and reach students to get them out to vote. And I worked really closely with county to county while I was in college. I know CJ, you worked with them as well last year. On the campaign, I worked with them on Dante's campaign. They are absolute angels. Mm-hmm. That really got me interested in the state legislature and knowing like, these are the races that are the most important, because with that one seat that we were able to flip, Governor Stein had his veto, and that's really important. And so I kind of just stuck with state legislatures ever since there. And there's the whole timeline for you. I don't remember if there was an actual question in there, but that might have been an answer to it.
That was an answer. That was the answer, I think. Just because it's also interesting because we can definitely draw a through line or rather a connection between all three of us for I think all three of us, and for a lot of people in not just North Carolina but all across America. 2016 activated people, because I think just like both of you and like you just said, Megan, when I saw the results come in, I'm like, what? Huh? No, that makes absolutely no sense. This guy was polling at 2% last year. What happened? And I didn't even know how the Electoral College worked.
I don't think I do. I don't think I do now.
I don't think anyone really does, to be honest with you.
The word works is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Yes.
But you do get activated and you do start like it's almost like a slow magnetic pull. You just have to know more and more and more until you find yourself as the president of the UNC Young Dems. You're like, oh, I guess I'm in this now. Was that how it felt? Did you ever have a moment where you're just like, oh, no, I am like an activist now?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I did it kind of gradually and getting more involved in them. I would say there was a moment in 2022 where Sherry Beasley was coming to campus with Senator John Ossoff, and I was like, this is going to be the best day of my life. Like, I get to meet both of them. It's going to be a great day. I was supposed to introduce John, and I was so hyped about that. I ended up having to introduce my dear friend Jonah Garson instead, who got to introduce John. But like that day, just like with those politicians, and just being like, a lot of people are like, this could be the coolest thing in their life. And I thought it was going to be really cool. But that whole day, I'd just been like working with all of these staffers to help like get the event ready and all of that. And I was like, oh, this is really what it is. Just a bunch of people doing some crazy work, some things that you would never expect the political staffers that you see to be doing to get like set up for events and work through all of this. It was really cool being on that stage and talk about some of the work we were doing and seeing people in the audience who were like DNC members and like elected officials like nodding along like, yeah, good job. And I was like, oh, yeah, they're doing good work. This is good.
I am good. You like me. You really like me.
I
Yeah.
do think for a lot of political staffers, whether they're like actually like working in like an office or if they're out on the campaign trail or anything like that, there is definitely a moment or two where they kind of like stop and like look around. And they're like, "Oh my God, this is incredible," or like, "Oh my God, how the hell did I end up here?" Like,
I got to meet Bill Clinton standing behind his bus. We went to this rally. Dante was introducing him. And at the end, I saw a staffer that I knew who was on the Harris Walls campaign. I was like, hey, I had a signal to him. Can I get across that barricade? He's like, yeah, come around. We get to go around. Then I got to take a photo with Bill. It was pretty cool.
oh yeah.
And I was like, this is a really cool moment. But also, like, these politicians are just people, too. It's just a bunch of people who are trying to do the work. And everything's so much less glamorous than people think it is, but it is fun sometimes, and you get to hang out behind the bus with Bill Clinton. Like, that was a fun way to spend my Sunday.
Yeah, I actually, Megan, you had a fundraiser with Dante last year, and that I got to go to, and it was like all these people there. Was like, I think actually it was Anderson Clinton, all the vice chairs for the state party. Jim Hunt was there. I think Rachel Hunt was there as well, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Like just all these incredible people that hold such status in North Carolina politics, but also North Carolina political history by extent. And I remember driving home that night, like thinking, "Oh my God!" Like, yeah, I know that wasn't my fundraiser, that wasn't my campaign, but oh my God, I get to be in this room with these incredible people. I was like, holy shit. I mean, and like I was also fortunate enough to be able to like meet Bill Clinton. I'm like, that is amazing. I talked to him about how he was part of the reason I ended up playing saxophone all throughout like middle school and high school is because I saw him when I was like really little. He just kind of stopped when I was telling him that. He's like, wait, what? Like, I shocked him into silence for like 2 seconds. Like, that's like the former leader of the free world right there. And I stopped him in his tracks like, holy shit. But no, like this work that we get to do is incredible. It is. I don't say that to like pat ourselves on the back or whatever.
No, it's incredibly taxing.
Yeah, no,
that's for sure.
Incredibly taxing. It is exhausting. It is tiring. It's like constant like emotional and mental drainage and damage essentially. It's a lot of disappointment. Most races that we run, we will not win.
And I will say, my win streak did not start until 2023. Those were the races I managed, but like in 2022, Sherry Beasley was a big race that we had been working for on campus. There were some other state legislature races across the state that we'd been following that we lost. Linda Cooper Suggs, the previous Dem before the Republican that Dante unseated, Ricky Hurtado, Brian Farkas, and seeing a lot of these really good leaders get out, it's really crushing. Yeah. And it's hard to see that. Yeah. But
I think definitely with you at the helm, I think is more what's impressive because especially at 23 years old, most people can't say that they've done that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But, you definitely are exhibiting some humility right now, so we appreciate that too.
But I will say, like, even though I had really small roles on any of those previous campaigns, but it's like having a couple of losses before you get to the wins, I think can be really helpful. Because if you just come into this job and all you ever do is win, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Are you paying someone off? Like, what kind of like campaign god did you like make a deal with to keep doing this? But I think kind of having those be the foundation and saying, oh my God, we put all this work in. We didn't win, but it was still really important work. And it gave a really good opportunity to build skills with that about what's the best way to convince voters, what's the best way to build a team that can get out and talk to those voters was still really valuable. And also seeing the consequences of what happens when you do lose, to kind of have that to motivate me to do the best that I possibly can for the candidates that I've worked for. And even if that means working 23-hour days once in a while, there was literal blood, sweat, and tears all the time.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the sweat. But there was a little bit of the other two too. So just got to do it all.
I literally have a scar from slicing my arm open with a cardboard sign. So I can't.
The night before that fundraiser that you mentioned, CJ, I was in the ER because I tried to fix my printer with a kitchen knife. Don't fix appliances with kitchen knives, guys.
I forgot about that.
I tried to fix my printer because it broke and I needed to print out the name tags for the fundraiser.
Oh, God.
Just sliced my thumb a little bit. It's okay. But again, that's just how it works. You do all the things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said at the beginning of this, these campaigns that we ran are very, very small. It's like, for most of us, it was like a staff of one. And it was us, right? Like social media, field, fundraising, everything was just us.
Talking your candidate down from the ledge.
Yeah. But I think there is this
Crisis
real
management.
perception. Like, I'm someone who loves political dramas on TV, and we see all this stuff. Like, it is not glamorous. It is not sexy. It is not how these people put in there. Like, I had someone come up to me. They're like, "Oh, I would love to read your job description." Because I was wearing this like really nice dress and I had on sneakers on with it too. And I was like breaking down like 7-foot tables that were bigger than me to help put them down at the end of the event. And earlier that day, I'd been on the ground, like putting yard signs together. But then at the same time, I'm like on a call with consultants the same day, managing $1 million media budgets. And it's just, you do all of the things. And it's really fun, really rewarding, but I'm tired. It's tiring at the end of some of those days. But again, I just know like the impact we have and the impact y'all had too on the races. It's just something you can't replicate. And it's really, really just important to always keep that in mind. You know, I'm sure there's other campaigns that aren't state legislature that are a little sexier, but we're really doing really hard, impactful work on there.
Absolutely. It starts at the bottom, right? Everything people that like to talk about the influence of the top of the ticket down. I think that if given the right motivation, you can have just as much power coming from the bottom of the ticket up. You might get people out to vote for their local school board member that they've met in person that would not have gone out to vote for either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and I mean, in Dante's district, so there were 2 districts in 2024 that were won by Trump that Dems won. And that was Lindsay Prather out in Buncombe, and that was Dante in Wilson. And I think a lot of that, I keep saying this about having the right messenger, but I think a lot of that came to people trusted Dante. He was a really good recruit for that district. He was local. He sounded like them, and he was able to just share this message in a really authentic way. This is what this community needs. This is what this community doesn't need. And people trusted him. And I think that's just a big thing for some of those on why that message was able to pierce through, but Kamala's wasn't. Yeah. And just something I think folks should keep in mind and be really intentional about candidate recruitment.
Well, it definitely helps that he had a good manager with him, but it also helps that the guy that he was running against was an actual goblin, possibly.
He was definitely a character. I will say both Dante and his opponent made my job easy at times. So
got a lot to work with.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to kind of talk about really briefly or get your thoughts on, because I know we're kind of approaching the end here. But a few minutes ago, you were talking about like building stuff and whatnot. One thing, my personal philosophy when it comes to like organizing and managing campaigns and whatnot, and I haven't always been able to do this, but one thing that I like to at least try to do is try and leave some sort of foundation, some sort of base of scaffolding, so to say, for the next campaign to come build on, whether it's, someone running for re-election or a new candidate or whatnot. For you, Megan and Adrian, what do you see as like the best way of kind of going about building that foundation, building that scaffolding?
I would say the big thing is like making sure that the campaign is not the only thing that's building and leaving that behind. Like your local county parties, the local organizations that are on the ground are going to outlast any candidate, and making sure that it's not just one campaign leading it, that they know and have the resources on how to act on it. I think especially in Dante's district, this was one that had never really seen proper investment until this year. There was a strong coordinated campaign there. We spent like $1.2 million on paid communications. That never happened before. And just also showing that this is what it takes to win. We talk about winning in rural areas. We talk about winning outside of our cities. This is the amount of resources that you need in order to do that, and kind of showing folks it's a little bit different than what we're used to. You have to show up and do very specific work. It's canvassing, it's phone banking, it's all of these things to reach voters, and just kind of showing that this is what needs to be done. This is what is possible with doing it. Also, this is a subtle plug, is that people need to have staff on the ground. The reason Nante was able to do that is because I was full-time there. There were other campaigns that had full-time staff that were able to manage this, but so many people don't have that ability. You can't raise money like that for a school board campaign. You have someone who's volunteer, who's probably also a teacher, and they just don't have time to have that infrastructure in there. And so it's really trying to build something that folks can come into and work with, so every campaign isn't having to rebuild. And so I'm hoping that we did leave some of that behind, a little bit of that experience with county parties. I know that's one thing I love that County to County does. Again, love them, gonna plug them forever. Is that they help a lot in the off year with building those county parties. What are the trainings they need? What are some of the resources we can get them to kind of make sure that winning isn't the exception, it's the norm for some of these places.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to echo that, and then just add a little bit to that, building up the infrastructure of some of these county parties is absolutely crucial. Because a lot of them, I ran a race that oversaw, that contained 4 counties. And within those 4 counties, there were basically 1.5 functioning county parties. If we had 4 that had regular volunteers, that had people that I could contact swiftly, there's a lot of infrastructure that's lacking in a lot of these places. And I think when you build the connections, like I'm sure that y'all had to do as well, like the Rolodexes, but also the email chains and things like that, that doesn't go away when the campaign ends, win or lose. You need to keep those connections together, keep that infrastructure working, even if that means building a website for an 80-year-old woman who is running the county, who is the county chair of the county party. I'm not the old woman in this scenario. I was the one helping the old woman. But the point of all that is, I think that's very, very good advice. And I just think that we need to do a better job of that, both as activists and strategists and as campaign managers. Everybody needs to. But
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I also think tapping into some folks that may not typically be where you'd look for political guidance and political help. There's, especially in counties like Wilson, where you have large Black populations, churches are so important for political organizing. Talk about getting someone that people trust to talk to. I think going around to those buildings and keeping those connections going. And also there's a lot of nonprofits and organizations that do really important work, and it's just trying to bring them all together in whatever way makes most sense, because they never stop advocating. They never stop caring for those communities. And it's just bringing that a little bit more into the political fold as well.
And that doesn't mean like electioneering from the pulpit. You gotta, because they don't really appreciate that. But yeah, you got to be smart about it. You got to look in the places where people aren't necessarily expecting it, right? But we are almost out of time. Megan, we have got to ask you very, very important question. Please don't mess this up. What is your go-to cookout order?
Keep in mind, it might get canceled, but...
So I'm actually a vegan, which makes this hard to answer. So if I were to go to cookout, Cajun fries, and get a big order of those. I will say though, on occasion, while I was in Wilson, if I was being a bad vegan, sometimes the jalapeno cheddar fry is pretty good. But I'm more of a Taco Bell girl in general, but Cajun fries are always a solid choice.
That's fair. Okay, so if not that, what's a staple of North Carolina that you think more people should know about? Maybe
I'm a really bad person to ask this question to. I'm a big fan of customizing spicy potato tacos at Taco Bell to make them vegan and add jalapenos. Like I've had that for lunch today and yesterday, and almost every single day during GOTV, because it was on my way between one of the polling sites and the county party office.
Well, that's all well and good. We appreciate you at least trying the Cajun fries at cookout, but
The most important advice I could ever give. Forget all the campaign stuff. Just eat some Taco Bell.
There you go. No, thank you for coming on. It was great to talk with you again, and specifically about all this politicking and electioneering and stuff, and hearing it straight from the mouth of somebody who knows how to win. It's been great talking to you again. And would you like to plug anything? Do you have any socials where people can follow you, see what you're doing?
You know, you guys don't need to follow me. My socials are just me being a person on there, but I'll plug County to County. They just merged with Neighbors on Call. If y'all want to get involved and help with some of these state legislature races, they're the place to be. So go check them out. And also, I don't know, I know it's only February 2025, but feel free to donate to your favorite candidates while you're at it. And Allison Riggs, those are my plugs.
Well, thank you so much, Megan. It's been great having you on.
Yes, thanks to y'all. It's good to see you.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. Again, a huge thanks to Megan for joining us and sharing her insights on what it takes to win here in North Carolina. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to The Left of Old North so you never miss an episode.
And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to stay updated on North Carolina politics, follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Left of Old North.
Oh, and Blue Sky.
Oh, and Blue Sky, too.
Yeah. So, again, thanks for listening, especially if you made it this far. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on The Left of Old North.